R.I.P. All right, we are going live on YouTube now. So let's get this party started right about. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are coming to you live from a couple of places on the internet. We're live over on Crowdcast, live on YouTube, or maybe you're listening to later on fine podcast platforms everywhere. Wherever you are listening.
Your finest artisanal podcast. I love a fresh podcast right from the grocer's hand into your mouth.
I went to a podcast farm actually this weekend, and I picked them right off the trees. They were that fresh. Wow. Just ate them there.
When you guys go to your butcher, does he put the sliced meat right into your mouth? Like when he's like, "Oh, that's."
Yeah, I get down on all fours like a dog. I scrabble in there, go arf arf, and he just throws meat in my mouth.
We must go to the same butcher. Makes sense.
Yeah, there you go. Well, anyway, this out of the way. New York is weird. Pete, you were in New York just the other week. Yeah. And we had a bunch of misconnections. For example, I heard you stopped by Justin's place to try to see him and he wasn't there. And then also you were hanging out with people on Friday and you never let me know.
Yeah.
So it's like sort of the same sort of thing, right?
I was supposed to go see Nat's show and then I couldn't go see Nat's show because of a work thing. Mm-hmm. Oh, it was blowing up.
Oh, okay. So just to check, you tried to see Nat's show. You went by Justin's place, and then you straight up ghosted me. Okay, just wanted to get the ranking there.
No, I showed up at the apple picking spot we were supposed to be at. And then we weren't there, so.
It's crazy. He was babysitting for your kids, Alex, and he just never went up stairs to see him.
I don't like to talk to them. I don't know. I don't want to know what's going on. That's between me and my butcher. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, we have a bunch of great guests for you this evening. So why don't we start bringing them into the stream? Later on in the show, we're going to have the creators of Runner are going to be here. Runner.
Don't slip.
But first, we are going to bring in Joe Corallo. He is one of the creators of The Never Ending Party, which is currently available on Comixology and is a great wild book. Joe, welcome to the show. Hello.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's been a while.
Yeah, great to see you.
It's been a long while.
No, it's good.
And before we get into it, I did want to mention, not to start on a little bit of a down note, but your co-creator, Rachel Pollack, has been hit with some hard health times. And I wanted to mention this right off. Yeah. She was potentially going to be here on the show. Obviously, it didn't work out because she's not doing so great. But correct me if I'm wrong on this. GoFundMe.com/F/Rachel Pollack needs your help if you want to donate. I'll drop the link in the chat here as well. But she's a great creator. And she can use some help. So there you go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. That all said, though, Never Ending Party has been out for a little while. Before we get into any of the talk about the book, Pete is partying right there, and he's never going to stop. And not invite me, I guess, right, Pete?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Anyway, that's the never ending part.
Yeah. Well, that's the interview. Me razzing Pete, and now we're done. No, this book is great. The concept. Do you want to kind of lay out the elevator pitch of the book for people who haven't checked it out yet?
Oh, sure. Basically, it's about a cult of club kids in the 90s. Who worship Dionysus and just want to party forever. So they're trying to start up the never-ending party and bring Dionysus here to what was then present day in the 90s. Doesn't work out too well. Skip ahead to the present day. And one of their friends they thought was gone forever when Dionysus showed up, comes back, hasn't aged a day, and I think she might have brought some things with her.
Suspicious.
I love the look of this book in particular, and I think that's so important to nail when you're talking about a never-ending party. So what went into the conversations there? What were the specific directives in terms of, okay, let's make this look like a wild, colorful, nonstop party?
Yeah, I mean, when I was putting this together, with Rachel. Rachel has a lot of the background in Greek mythology, and I'd always been fascinated with like club kid culture, stuff like that. So I reread that book, the Disco Bloodbath, about the murders and stuff like that took place when the guy killed Angel and like threw his head into the river and washed up on Staten Island, which we reference in the book, but it's a different character.
That's where everything goes.
Yeah, exactly. Right on Staten Island. But yeah, so wanted to do that. I was definitely also influenced by, oddly enough, since this is not a superhero book, but both Jack Kirby and Mike Sekowsky's like layouts and the way they would like do their storytelling. And just working with, I'd worked with Eva before when I was editing Kim and Kim, so I knew she could really lean into like a poppy fun kind of vibe. Same thing with both Claudia and Conzarosa with the coloring. And I really wanted it to be, simple colors that would pop. So I think that all adds to it too. We sent a lot of reference to things like on the screen right now, I sent that particular like Renaissance painting to be referenced and things like that, just because it was so important to really, again, like nail the vibe, nail the tone, have to occasionally do things like people that have cell phones at bars in the 90s. So let's, can we fix this or that? Yeah, like stuff like that. But yeah, no, it was really important. Noah Sharma, who was the editor on this book that I got for this, also very keen eye for detail. He would always go in and pick up things like he would be able to be like, on this panel, Mindy's missing an earring and things like that. And, so we really did try as hard as we could to, keep the consistency throughout the whole story.
Now, did you have to do a lot of research to get into the club kid scene in your life to understand what was happening here?
Yeah, no, there was a decent amount of research.
Personal, like in-person research.
No, I talked to people who were there at the time.
Oh, okay.
I did do that. I did talk with, someone who was in the scene and knew Angel and people like that. So I did get to do that. In addition to watching, and, if you're a few issues in, I watched all those Geraldo episodes where he'd have the club kids on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because that's how I learned about that stuff. Like as a kid, I'd be homesick from school, and it was, once you hit a certain age in the 90s, it was like, well, you can watch, programming for preschoolers or like trashy daytime talk
full on adult, bad for your brain stuff.
Once you're like, you're 7 or 8, you think you know everything, and you'll just watch something like that. But that's how I knew about that stuff. So I went back, and luckily there's things like YouTube where some monsters are just like hoarding that and putting that back out there to subject us to all over again. So but yeah, I went through that. I think was it Phil Donahue or whatever had the club kids on a few times too, that kind of stuff. So I watched all that stuff. I had some of the other people involved, watch it. I ain't quiz them. I don't know if they watch it or not, but yeah, it was, it all helped. It was all very, insightful, especially that beginning section, issue 3, I was really trying to nail what it was like with those shows and the audiences, because you'd always get something with like Geraldo, where there'd be like the hippie grandma who's like in the audience is just like, I'd let my kids do anything. And then like the Wall Street guy who's just there, and as soon just stands up and goes like, aren't you all ashamed of yourself? Like, so I'm like, let me get a little bit of all that in there.
It's classic Wall Street to be in the audience of Geraldo at 3 p.m.
Oh yeah,
that's how the business works. Make
after
your money
the bell
in the
rings, you're off to Geraldo. That's what you do. Let's talk about the other side, though, because the other part of it, of course, is this whole Dionysus thing, delving into Greek mythology and other things like that. So, what appealed to you about that in particular?
I've always been, interested in that kind of stuff. I was a history major in college and studied art history and all that sort of stuff. So I was always interested in that, and philosophy. I minored in, philosophy. So you end up, the Greek stuff kind of all gets blended into like, a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of history, a little bit of art history, and you end up learning a lot about the Greeks. So that was helpful, but a lot of that too is Rachel. Rachel's always approached things from this very sort of like academic and like really understanding like the world. She's traveled all over the place. It's crazy. Like I noticed like the difference between like, for example, like Doom Patrol, like her run compared to like Grant's. Like when you like read interviews with like Grant, they'd be like, well, I did a lot of drugs, and then like I just kept pressing 7 on my keyboard until I moved into a new like reality, and and that's how I came up with the Scissor Man or something like that. And then like when you hear or you read interviews with like Rachel, it's like, oh well, there was this ancient instrument that hasn't been used in 5,000 years that this civilization had invented. So I wanted to reference that. So like she just has this insane knowledge we were able to like tap into for this story. It was to be able to tie Greek tragedy into club kid murders was fun.
It's a fun.
I thought
this is a little bit of a swerve, but we have a question here in the comments for you from Edward Doherty.
Sure.
Can you ask this guy why he stopped appearing on Thinking Critical, which was the right choice to make?
I don't want to get too into that stuff. People can do sort of whatever they want, and sometimes you agree with people, sometimes you don't. I think everyone really likes, comics. I like talking comics. I especially when it comes to that show, I love talking about old comics. I will gladly go talk with whoever about like, remember that time Hulk fought the Absorbing Man in issue 261? That was on Easter Island. That was really great. So that stuff, but like once it gets into like the I hate all this culture war stuff, and I so I don't really want to get too lost in the woods on all of that stuff, but
yeah, that tracks. It's hard to enjoy a conversation when it gets into that straight up argument.
No, it's I don't know. I think there are things that and I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I don't want to upset anybody. I don't want people thinking this or that. People can do whatever they want. It's
and see, that seems like that was the problem with the podcast is you were cool with people thinking whatever they want, and maybe other people were not. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, but like I don't harbor any ill will towards different people, and talking about certain subjects I'm happy to with most people. So.
Let me ask you this: were you in New York recently and you didn't also contact Alex to hang out?
I mean, last time I was in New York, I didn't contact him.
Alex.
Wow. I think woke culture is canceling me. Is that what we're talking about here? Is that what's going on?
No, I think
no, just this culture. This
just this culture. And you're all awake, so that tracks.
Yeah.
Anyway, Joe, back to the book. So it's out on Comixology now. First couple of issues are out at this point, right?
Yeah, no. The finale actually comes out a week from today, October 4th.
Okay, nice. Great.
Mm-hmm.
So, as usual with Comixology stuff, I'm always curious where this potentially is going next, because I know some people have been perfectly happy to have it on Comixology. Some folks have gone out to paper publishers and paper publishers. That's what we call them. I've been doing this for many years, and I know what I'm talking about. What are the plans going forward? Is it just going to live on Comixology? Is there going to be a collection through Dark Horse or otherwise? Where can we see it?
The plan is to collect it through Dark Horse. They've been doing most of the Comixology stuff. I don't have the exact date on when that'll be out, but it's forthcoming. I know that they're working on the files and getting things ready. I'll periodically get pinged about like, hey, you got this like unflattened version because we gotta fix this or that. So that is forthcoming. But if you have Amazon Prime, you can read it now for free. It's part of what you're already paying for. So
cool.
Definitely, feel free to check out. You could do both.
There you go. Why not?
Awesome.
Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. Congrats on the book. It was a pleasure seeing you again. And
great. Yeah.
Good luck. Can't wait to read the final issue.
Great. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, thanks, Joe.
Care.
Bye. Yeah. All right, there we go. That was Joe Corallo. We did lose Justin Tyler, sadly, in the middle there. R.I.P. Justin. I hope
we traded a J for a J.
I have a picture of Pauly Shore welcoming him at the pearly gates, just like the two of them hugging and being like,
that's a lot.
Buddy, we're back together, buddy.
Wow.
I'm going to welcome Justin back. Oh, he's back.
Hey,
there we go.
I don't know what happened there. I could hear you the whole time trying to Pauly Shore the shit out of me during.
But to talk about his book real quick, it really is quite a tripped out, fun adventure. That the art and everything is really bananas.
Yeah, we talked about it in the stack, and it's a great read. Really enjoyed it.
It's in the stack.
There you go. You can check it out. And also beyond that on Comixology, I just want to repeat the link here for Rachel Pollack Needs Your Help. It's GoFundMe.com/F/Rachel-Pollack-Needs-Your-Help. And she's gotten a great amount of funding so far, but of course, as we all know, hospital bills, lots of stuff. So anything you can kick by her would be really appreciated. Why don't we welcome our next guests here into the stream? As mentioned earlier, they are the creator of Runner, a new comic that has some interesting twists to it that I'm sure we'll get to. Ooh. They are Blaise Hemingway, who is the writer, Bryan Unkeless, who is the producer, Bryce Anderson, who is the production executive. And they're going to slowly make their way in here, starting with Blaise. Hello, Blaise. How are you?
Hey, what's going on, guy? Dude? We're talking way more about Pauly Shore and Geraldo than I expected.
That's every week, man.
I know. We told you those were blacked out, and you're here for it. Great.
Dude, look at you with the Ghost t-shirt, bro. Hardcore. Yeah, I love it, dude.
Thank you, man. I did a little customization on it to get a little pop. You know what I mean?
Wow! Look at this.
Nice.
Excellent.
We got Ghost fans. All right, I love it. Look at you, boy. You guys have nicer cameras than me. You look much more handsome. I think the camera has
I believe you're talking about your fellow guests, not us, because we look like
I'm talking about everybody.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you. That's very sweet.
I know that
Thank you so much for coming on. Really interested and excited to talk about this project. For those who don't know, all of you guys have some pretty deep roots in Hollywood and a bunch of, I was about to say, motion pictures, like out of the 1940s, but movies. You're embracing comics and you're embracing like a lot of different digital formats for the comic as well. But for whoever it's applicable to, where did the idea for this originally start? Did it start with the idea of the comic? Did it start with the idea of trying to do something more in the digital space? What was the original genesis?
It's a little bit of all three of us is the answer. The idea started with Bryan, who's a pretty prolific producer, and Cedric Nicholas Troyan, who's a director, while they were working on this movie, Kate. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, Bri?
Yeah, so we were just spending a lot of time in Thailand and Tokyo and noticing all the killer cars in Tokyo. I just love car culture and wanted to create an epic adventure that utilized racing at the basis of it. And it really came alive when we sat down with Blaise. And he just built it in such a great way. And so to answer your guys' question, like what medium was it geared towards originally? It was actually just story. It was pure, let's build a world, let's build a great story, and then everything can kind of build off of that. And Blaise just like brought so much of his screenwriting background to it. He's an amazing world builder and worked in the Disney Story Trust for all these years, and it's like the guy studios call to go do a weekly to fix scripts, and he's amazing at creating detailed worlds. And that's where he really took it and brought it to life.
I agree. It not only does it look amazing, but the cars are sick. It's just such a cool design. I was
Beats the gearhead
immediately. Yeah, I
Nice.
love cars. If there's a TV show and they show a sick car, I'm like, ooh, that's nice. Please more of that. So it was nice to see. It felt like the camera for the different panels was really pointing in the right direction. So I was super happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, Fabrizio did an incredible job with the panels, and so Bryan came in with this idea, and when I was at the Disney Story Trust, and I've kind of come in and out on a couple of projects that had racing at the center, and then I was doing one at Disney Animation, and so John Lasseter, who was running it at the time, he's hardcore. He's hardcore about hugging, and he's hardcore about research. So he like basically when I was doing a story about racing, I spent 6 months going to race school, going to F1 races, being in the pit, learning how to drive an Indy 3 car, learning how to drive, car, like just getting steeped in racing culture. And I told Bryan when he came to me with this idea, I'm like, I fucking love it. I love race cars. Like it's fun, but I'm like, the stakes are really, really low. That's usually the problem you come up against, because even if you really do a great job getting them invested, it's hard to sustain. And I was like, what if we thought bigger? What if we thought about a whole world that instead of being built on warrior culture, it was based on racing culture, and that it is speed that is the currency of power as opposed to like muscle? And what if that started at the most fundamental level in clans and tribes, and then take that 25,000 years in the future? And if we're not spending all of our time, energy, and resources trying to kill one another, what's it look like when we're racing one another? And that's kind of where we got here. And working with Cedric, we got to reinvent everything: culture, religion. Like, what's it like if speed is the most important thing? Like, what is that religious experience like for people that want to race on an open air motorcycle because they want to feel connected to the world around them, even though that exposes them to danger? Like, that's sort of the point. So that was sort of like the genesis of the idea. And we talked about, an animated series, I think, was where Cedric and I were first thinking. And then Bryce was the one that said, like, dude, what do you think about doing this as a comic? And I'm like, I've been waiting for this phone call for my entire life, because I absolutely love comics. I've been an avid comic reader since I was a little guy, but I've never had the opportunity to write one. I've written screenplays, I've written stage plays, books. So as soon as he said it, I was like, yes. And then, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let me ask you, like, with racing and speed, like, it's hard to translate that to comics. I feel like you have to get a little creative because it's a still medium. So how did you approach that? Because I feel like the art is such a big part of the book. And how did you find your way to that through this idea of speed?
That's a great question. I think early on, we had some help from Sun Creature, who did some of the preliminary stuff on Arcane, do some of the design for us. But when we saw Fabrizio's artwork, what he did so well was he found ways to put motion where there wasn't any. And then Cedric, who's our partner in this, who unfortunately couldn't be here because he's shooting something in Paris, he's a director. So like we really, when I was scripting it, we talked a lot about angles and ways to suggest speed, and then using tricks like, blurring and stuff to put us in motion. But as much as possible, we want to have as much expressive kinetic energy in every frame and have that intensity and tee up those big 2-page splashes so that you're like, fuck yeah. Because it is, to your point, it's tricky to pull off, on a flat 2-dimensional surface.
But that's what I really love working with Blaise too, is that his scripts read fast too. Like, I think that fundamental urgency to the writing translates to every step of it. And so that I think Fabrizio and Cedric are able to kick off what he's done and then make it feel dynamic and really visceral. Every frame should kind of try to punch you in the face.
Yeah.
It was interesting to hear you say that, I don't know if it was exactly this, but you're essentially laying out 25,000 years of history and different cultures and building all this stuff. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you're talking about, you have a script that is all speed and all racing and all action. So how much of that is just informing the script you're doing, and essentially you're not throwing it out, but you're just restraining yourself from using all that backstory, that Bible, that information that you've created?
Yeah, that is a temptation, because Cedric and I definitely ate our vegetables. We really built a Bible. We're building a series that can go for many, many issues. Hopefully we have the opportunity to do 100 plus. Like, that would be my goal, to really tell the arc of these 8 characters that are bringing you into this world. But one of the tricks that I'm using is, like, we're having all that kinetic energy, like this issue and issue 2 and issue 3, you're thrown into the race. And then we just do nonlinear storytelling to give you, it's like you come in late and then we catch them up on the way. So I want every issue to move. Even issue 2, we spend the whole time at this milestone bivouac, which are like sort of like these resting stops between all 21 legs of the race. And you're in this space, but there's racing happening there, because it's so steeped in the culture. Even when you stop racing, everybody's still racing. They're betting on like these Pokemon-esque animals that race. They're saying, like, who wants to jump off the top of the checkpoint tower and see who it bails out first, all that sort of stuff. But I think the trick of it is really is staying nonlinear, so we can keep you start and finish with motion, and then you have snippets of lore, character along the way.
Has working on this sped up your personal lives? Are you living faster in your normal life?
Yeah, I got
young. Wake at 2 a.m. a lot more often than I used to.
That's right.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you saying, Bryce? You're waking up a lot more? Yeah.
I was just going to say I'm awake at 2 a.m. a lot more often.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you are, because it's just like, what's awesome about it's like one of the good and bad things that came out of the pandemic is, obviously we learned how to work internationally. So we're our cover artist is in Brazil, our illustrator, colorist is in Italy, we're in Los Angeles. So you do start to keep wacky hours and learn how to be efficient. So I guess efficiency is part of it.
So I did want to ask you, on the other side of the spectrum, beyond the creative, there's also the technical part of it, the production part of it. To be totally upfront, I think, to say it generously, we've been pretty skeptical about NFTs here on the podcast. We've talked about them, but you are, beyond the physical copy, also releasing it as an NFT. So why that, and what are the challenges there in terms of releasing a comic that way?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it felt organic to the story, genuinely, because one thing that is part of the storytelling is this pinch technology, which basically allows nations that have been kind of forgotten and have no chance of winning the race to even the playing field. And so it's like these wormholes, which are extremely dangerous and risky, but that you can actually compete if you use them. And there seemed like a lot of parallels to Web3 in that for that. So that felt good. And then you get into the producerial reasons for it, which is, frankly, it is something where there was an opportunity to build this world further than we could in any other way. We have these great partners in Metaversal, who were helping us build the scope of it, to actually get the conceptual art, and to populate the world with people that can participate in the storytelling. And that just seemed really exciting. And so you can go and many people do, obviously, self-finance the comic book, but all of us in this space, we're early, like we've been very accomplished in film and television, but we were younger in the comic book space, and to be able to go and do it and to then also to create this community around it has been really fun. Like, there's people that now are actively involved in helping us create specific cultural touchstones within each of these nations, and it's just been really exciting to try to do it that way.
And I think to return even more basic than that, I think I would say, I love reading comics, and 98% of the comics I read are digital, right? And I hate buying digital goods. It annoys me, right? I don't like paying subscription cert fees. I don't like buying something that then just like lives on my iPad. It annoys me. And part of what's so cool about comics is collecting comics. and having that first edition of something. And part of that is being able to sell it, right? And so what NFTs give you is they give you this sort of this, you know, a limited number of a digital asset, but also a digital asset that you can then sell and pass on. And there's something about that that's really, really cool, and kind of like a return to what comics used to be before comics became subscription digital, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, and I understand that there's sort of this brave new world of NFTs, and of course there's a lot of BS in that ecosystem at the same time, but what is there is sort of this return to kind of a human collector mentality that I think you guys will really identify with, and a lot of people that watch your show will identify with.
Well, I mean, Bryan, I think you just touched on this a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like almost in a not negatively, but calculated way, you're talking about this community that you're building around it, right? And I saw this a little bit when we were posting about the show on Twitter. I do think there's this constant talk we have about comics and appealing to a comics fan base, and you've managed to activate a very different fan base that wouldn't normally necessarily be in comics here. Does that seem kind of on the right track?
Yeah, it does. And like, we very much love comics, and it comes from a genuine place making the comic. But it goes back to that very original question that you asked, is how was this initiated? And it was initiated story first. Mm-hmm. Like, we really believe that this is Omega is a planet, a universe where all these different stories can be told, and told in different ways. And so there's certainly the Web3 NFT part of that. There's definitely the comic book part of that, and that's the most, like, I think the way that we can most show the scope of the storytelling. We also want to build it into other avenues too: gaming, animated TV series, movies. And what I think makes us unique as a partner, as a partnership, is that we really understand what goes into making the animated series and the movie, because that's what we've done for 4 years now. And so having that understanding of, okay, how can we get the story out there all these different ways, build the community, build the story, and then so that'll unlock other avenues to further tell the story down the way too.
And I just want to add just real quick, like, when we talk about community stuff, again, like, I remember being a comic book reader, sending letters to Stan Lee that I hope are getting published on the back, but it's like reactive, right? I'm reacting to stuff that's already occurred. What's cool about this, like, the first issue I wrote independently, and then then it goes on Discord and people start reacting and start saying things. So something that we've opened up are people that bought the first 1,000 issues of our comic also got, an NFT, and a first edition NFT that gives them a digital subscription in perpetuity. Not subscription, you get them, like, they show up to, the digital version is yours, and you can sell that asset or keep it. And the thing is, the other thing that gives them a gateway to is I'm opening up a writer's room every week, and I'm saying, all right, if it's optional, you don't have to come in, but if you have one of those things and you want to come in, you want to hear me pitch out what issue 3 sounds like, and you want to weigh in because you become invested in these characters. You're like, Ozzy would never do that. Like, what are you smoking, Blaise? And I'm like, a lot. I'm smoking a lot. So I need your advice. Like, get involved. Nobody's perfect. So again, like, this isn't like a choose your own adventure thing, but I think it's really important. The fans put us in the position we are in, and we need to show more respect, more gratitude, and hear their voices. Like, they're not always going to be right, but there may be some brilliant ideas in there too. And we want them to feel a collective ownership of Runner. Which is the real opportunity here, which is what that's why I'm doing it. Bryce introduced me to this world, and I was, believe me, no one was more skeptical than me 12 months ago. And now I've learned to embrace it. And now I really do. I love it. It's super fun.
I'm very interested in this idea of you running a writer's room with 1,000 people in it. Oh,
we limit it to 25 at a clip. Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, you're just like, it's the Tower of Babel. No, that would be bad.
I mean, I have as a little bit of a follow-up question here. So if you are bouncing around these ideas and these people have a stake in it, let's say somebody in the Discord room throws out what you think is an absolutely brilliant idea that's got to go in the book. How does that work? Do they get credit there? Is it they have the credit because they're part of the Discord? What's the give and take on that like?
The added value would be the collected out, since we all sort of share in the most loosest definition, like an ownership of this thing, right? They own this NFT, they own this thing. So that's something that, to Bryce's point, that's something they can resell on OpenSea, they can hold on to, whatever they want to do with it. So the added value is really in sort of like this piece of it that they own. because it does get very complicated with licensing and like credit. It gets murky in a hurry. That's why it's like, this is optional. If you would like to engage in the creative process, have at it. If you want to hang out with a dude that's been doing this for 20 years and I can talk to you more about my process, how I take an idea to fruition. Those are sort of like, to me, that's like an enhanced opportunity for people that want to dive in. But it's certainly not required. And we're certainly not looking to like steal any brilliant ideas or anything like that. Like if you want to make a suggestion, if you want to pitch this stuff, like this is the form to do it. And just, these are sort of the parameters of engaging in that. It's like I said, it's letters to the editor in real time, I guess. Is the gist.
Let's go to the other end of the spectrum, because like we talked about a little bit at the beginning, you guys also, and as you mentioned, you have some deep ties in Hollywood. You said you're already working on that part. What potentially can we expect there? What are you exploring in terms of animated series, movie, video games, and what is the process there, particularly given what we're talking about, where you are getting this feedback and are creating this thing in real time?
Well,
yeah,
right.
Go ahead, Blaise.
No. All I was going to say is, first and foremost, I want to make a kick-ass comic. Like, that's my number one priority. That's 1000% my focus. Does this, because we built this, does it lend itself to these other places? 1000%. And I think one of the most obvious places is in an animated series, because, look, a comic is essentially a script and phenomenal storyboards. Like, already sort of like the pipeline is already commenced. So that's a big part of it. And I'll leave it to Bryan to talk about other stuff.
No, exactly. And I think the idea when we get to that place, we want to be totally prepared, that we have as much, articulation of the story and the world as possible. And because the alternative path, which many people in our field often confront, is that you can set something up at a streamer or a studio, and then you're in this like what's called development hell, where you're always constantly like asking for permission, to go to the next step, and always. And what is exciting here is that we want to build this as much as possible, and then only ask for permission once, which is to go make it, not every step of the way. So we've been pretty strategic about that, but then I know I'm kind of a broken record. It really just goes down let's keep baking this. Let's bake the story as much as possible. Let's show that in any way we can. And it will bleed into, and I've thankfully been able to watch as something that starts just in a room with a couple people having ideas and build and become global. And like, we're just going to keep keeping our head down and do the work on the story.
And do you think, this sounds like this is a little while off, but do you think you're going to use the same, what we're referring to as non-traditional methods to release it? Is it more going to a Hollywood studio, going to like a Netflix or other streamer and seeing what you can do there?
Yeah, so I work a lot with Netflix. And most recently just did Books Both Ways with Lily Reinhardt and For the Ride and Project Power and Brian and a lot of others that over there. So we have a fluid relationship with them. Not to say that we would have to go them. We have relationships everywhere, and so, but that is something that it's really like too early to tell, because there's and I'm not trying to be evasive. It literally is just like there's so many things that have to happen by the time you get there.
Yeah.
Into that strategy, so it's hard to say, but right now we're super focused on the comic and the PFP option.
This is a little unrelated, but Pete's a big fan of Lily Reinhardt. Could you tell her that he said hi?
I will. She's incredible.
He hates that.
He loves Lily and he loves Ghost. Those two things are first and foremost.
I also want to hang out in your room, man. Look, you got the fully formed Voltron over there. Come on, dude.
Yeah, man. I got
for hours over there.
I got some Mazinga up there.
Oh wow, look at that.
Yeah, I got another Voltron. I got some nice comic book. I got a little Sean Phillips over there, a little Becky Cloonan.
Oh, Pete has been studying your room this entire interview. He has a full-on script of it. Yeah.
Taking screenshots.
It's like
that's the whole
MTV Cribs.
He's the eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Walking us through the comic collection.
Yo, roll up to my 150 square foot garage office. Welcome to Cribs. The most underwhelming episode ever.
Perfect. Before we let you guys go, though, if people do want to check out Runner, obviously you've had that initial 1,000 NFTs, but like you're showing off here, there is the physical copy. There's more to come. There's a dog somewhere. Go and just bark. No, it's fine. We have.
Look at my dog. He's just out.
Everybody's got a dog. We're all dog people.
This is welcome to the dog cast. You're here with the dogs.
Where can people check it out?
Dog is pitching a show as well.
If people do want to check out the pure comic, like we've been talking about, what's the best way for them to check that out?
Go ahead, Bryce.
I was going to say, jump on our website. It's omegaxrunner.xyz. There will be a lot of updates about the next time you will be able to order a physical comic book. The other thing you can do is you can buy the NFT. And when buying the NFT, you can get access to edition 1. That'll be live hopefully in the next couple weeks, and then every other edition after that.
Awesome. And we have a comment here from RT, says, also come join us in the Discord. We're friendly and looking forward to building a team.
Well, thank you, RT, nice. Whoever you are.
Very mysterious.
RT. I know, RT. Come hang out with me. Okay.
It's the Russian network, right? The Russian network is popping in here. Just to offer up a couple of comments. It's cool. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Truly a pleasure. Very curious to see how this project continues. And like we said, we really enjoyed the story. And like you said, the story is the key. So there you go.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Yeah,
big fans of the pod, man.
Oh my gosh.
Really appreciate the time.
Well, thank you. Man. Thank you for listening.
Awesome.
Have a good night, guys.
Pleasure. Take care, folks.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right. So there we go. Once again, as mentioned, the project is called Runner. You can check it out a bunch of places online. And we are going to move on to our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It is your audience questions.
Yeah.
First question.
And for audience questions, all you got to do is drop a question and ask a question. I see a bunch of those already on Crowdcast. Also, a comment in the comments over on YouTube, and I will keep an eye on those as well. But before we get to that, first of all, I was going to ask what everybody's drinking, as well as talk about the drink that Brett Macris has curated for the episode. But Pete, looks like you have a question.
Yeah, it looked like that guy was coming to us from a treehouse, right? That one guy was like in a round, like
he was
in a treehouse. He's got a sick fort.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I love that your job on the show. So, Justin, my job is to interview the guests. Your job is to analyze the background.
I'm just looking.
We've established that's canon now. Pete comes out afterwards with some sick comments about the backdrop.
Amazing. All right. Well, why don't we talk about what we're drinking? To be perfectly honest, I wasn't able to make the drink that Brett Macris curated today. I know you did, Pete. I know you were into it, but we're back to the Gotham cocktail book, and we are doing, wait, hold on, I'm going to find what it is called. It is called the Sakura. Ooh. Sakura, there we go. It's gin sake, which I did not have, dry vermouth, which I'm out of, lemon juice, cherry blossom syrup, which Brett provided a nice...
love the alternate take on that.
Totally great. Did not have that either. So I did have half the things. So in honor of his New Orleans heritage, I made a Sazerac instead.
Ooh,
so there
nice.
Very tasty.
I also didn't have all that stuff, so I made a Manhattan.
Wow.
Pete, what are you drinking from your brother's fridge this week?
Drinking, still attacking his Zadies.
I'm drinking cream cheese. It's all he had in there. So that's what I'm drinking.
Zadies? What's Zadies?
It's a born and brewed in Baltimore is what it says in the can.
Nice. Excellent. Very nice. All right, we have a bunch of questions here already, so I'm going to jump over to one. This is from Crowdcast. Did the 90s image boom help or hinder the long-term perception of comics in the mainstream, considering the quality of the art juxtaposed against the quality of the storytelling?
Great. All right, well, first off, when we were talking...
A lot of takes in that question, I would argue.
When we were talking to our guest, and he was talking about being a kid in the 90s, that made me feel crazy old.
Right, because you were a kid in the 1910s.
That's right. The aughts, if you will. But yeah, it was pretty sure we graduated college at the end of the 90s there. So,
well, I don't know about you.
Not I, sir.
I'm 18 years old. Anyway, to answer this question, though, I think, to go in a different direction, I kind of say neither. I think the speculator market hurt comics because people were picking it up just for collecting it. That was it. Like, I remember Spider-Man #1, I think, is my best example, where my brother got it. He never read a comic in his life. Like, he never picked up any of the comics, and he was like, well, I have to get a copy of Spider-Man 1, right, to collect it? And I was like, yeah, sure, it's going to be worth tons. And, of course, they had piles and piles of them everywhere.
Tons of money.
Tons. And that was the same time as the Image Comics boom and everything. And I don't know if it's so much about the art type so much as, like, that is certainly what people were picking up, and people, I think, liked the very extreme style that folks like Rob Liefeld and Mark Silvestri and others were bringing.
More
it was exaggerated, it was ludicrous, it was over the top, but I think it seemed, I don't know, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there was a sense that it felt transversive versus this very, like, tied up style that was coming before it.
I think a couple things. Like, first off, it was those creators leaving sort of the corporate world of comics and taking ownership of their own ideas. So that, I think, is a huge win for comics and has transcended to the current Image, which has become a home for that. So I think that was good in general. The glut was, I think it was good for everyone at the time. Everyone was making a ton of money. Bad in general for two reasons. One, it did de-emphasize story and it was like, get these books out. We don't care what's in them for words. Just make the art pretty. Let's go. And then secondarily, everyone thinks comics sell like they did then and that it's such a collector's market. And that's something that just isn't true anymore and hasn't been for a while. And I'm constantly telling people, like, comics are essentially valueless and only a handful of people in any part of society read them.
I blame Beanie Babies. You know what I mean? Like, we all thought they were going to be worth so much money, and then, just none.
Well, you used to collect that stick and hoop game, right?
Oh,
you
man.
used to do that when you played that.
Dude, they said if you had one of those, you'd be set for life.
It was crazy when Pete left Beanie Baby Club and joined Comic Book Club. It really set the Beanie Baby world on fire. What a coup for us.
Yeah. Great question. Why don't we go over to YouTube? This is one from Julian Lobato. Everyone pick two superheroes to create a comic together. Who's the writer? Who's the artist? And what book are they working on?
Wow. So
2 superhero team, writer and artist team on that superhero book. I think that's what's being asked.
A superhero book with a writer and an artist, or do you want 2 superheroes joined together?
No.
Let's say 2 superheroes, one writer, one artist.
Great. It's great. So let's make some friends. Let's put some people together and make some friends.
Yeah. Gosh. And we got to do some pairing, I guess, that's never happened before or something like that.
Here we go. Okay. It's going to be Gabriel Rodriguez and Greg Pak. And it's going to be Blade and Hulk teaming up.
Wow, Pete. Great Pete answer, let me say. And Gabriel Rodriguez bringing sort of the dark edge to that. I love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Just sticking with Marvel stuff for no particular reason. The first thing that came to mind, if we're talking about something I haven't seen before, how about Spider-Man and Mr. Fantastic? And it's by Ryan North with art by Javier Rodriguez.
Wow.
Nice. Ryan North. Love that pick.
Yeah, well, because I feel like Spider-Man, you always think Spider-Man, Human Torch, they're friends. But what would it be like if Spider-Man was hanging out with Mr. Fantastic? I feel like that's a weirder pairing, and you could get some humor out of that. And Ryan North would do a good job.
Because they'd be like having a smart off kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Potentially. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Mark Russell and Riley Rossmo.
And those are the 2 superheroes. Go ahead.
Yep, they're the superheroes, written and drawn by. And I think it's Department of Truth meets Tiny Titans.
Wow. Love it. They're going to get fucking ripped apart.
Oh,
all right, we got another question here from Crowdcast. This is from Nat Townsend. Is the Secret Wars movie going to be like Hickman's Crisis on Infinite Earths or like the 80s Secret Wars? In your opinion, no facts required.
Great question, and great to take the fact leash off of us so we can
Thank you. Sometimes I feel like Nat's really setting this up for a loss, but that one I feel like he kind of unleashed us a little bit.
He's setting you up for a loss, perhaps most of all, since you've threatened to bodily harm to him for.
Oh man, I can't wait! It's coming. It's gonna be a my.
That's why it's funny. You said you wanted to see his show, and I was like, nope. He wants to punch his show.
I think pretty clearly it's going to be Hickman's run more than anything.
I was hoping it was going to be 80s, man.
Nah, I mean, maybe they'll pull a little on it, but they love Hickman stuff. They clearly took a bunch of that for Infinity War in particular, with the Black Order, with the creatures that showed up there and everything. I think they're going to do the same thing with Secret Wars, like usual with MCU stuff. It won't be a one-to-one adaptation, but I think what we're going to get, and we've talked about this before, I think on our Marvel Vision podcast, but my best guess is we will see some sort of thing in Kang Dynasty where Kang is attacking and trying to take over the multiverse, and ultimately he wins, the multiverse is destroyed, but they're able to save this patchwork planet a la the Hickman Secret Wars, and we'll see that show up in Secret Wars with whoever is left fighting for dominance of this planet and to hopefully get the multiverse back.
I think it's going to be a straight adaptation of the 80s comic, and then at the end, Elf is going to do the voiceover.
Elf?
Yeah.
Or Elf?
Elf?
Elf.
Will Ferrell? Okay.
No.
Will Ferrell as Elf. Like at Christmas.
The guy likes to eat cats.
Will Ferrell as Elf?
Oh, my God.
So
that's a fun crossover.
Huh? And kill me. Right?
Yeah.
There's the voice you've been waiting for.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it is going to be Hickman. I do
think
they will bring in some of the simplicity. The Hickman Secret Wars was very complex. I bet we'll get a little bit more of the original Secret Wars simplicity. And what do you think? Are we going to get a Venom costume on Spider-Man coming out of that?
I mean, they got to bring in everybody, right? Like, they got to bring in literally everything. Just throw all the spaghetti at the wall in that final Secret Wars movie to make it feel like the biggest movie of all time. Because Endgame already felt like the biggest movie of all time. They got to do something even bigger than that.
Well, and we were talking about this in the Slack earlier, where it's like Endgame was big. Thanos, one of the most renowned crossovers Marvel's done, Infinity Gauntlet. And then now we're doing all the multiversal stuff. Like, where do we go from here? This is very much cart before the multiversal horse. But, like, we're doing it all now. It's all over. So, like, where do we go out of it?
So what's after the multiverse saga? Vibranium Vendetta. Come on.
Now you're speaking my language. Let's take it back to basics.
Yeah, there you go.
This is some long-term projections, but I'm going to say I think some of our main characters get spun into a different universe, or the universe is like a Dark Avengers.
Ooh. I guess we'll see what happens. Maybe there's a Light Avengers and they're all friends. That could be nice.
Oh, wouldn't that
be nice?
Fun.
We got a question here. This is some breaking news from Pablo D. Martinez. Pete, I don't know if you know about this. I think you know about this, but I'm sure you'll have some strong feelings. This broke right before we were taping the show. Ryan Reynolds has revealed on his Instagram and also Twitter, let's not downplay his Twitter, that Deadpool 3 is happening and Hugh Jackman is coming back as Wolverine. Thoughts? Take it away, Pete.
Well, I mean, everybody had hoped that Deadpool 3 was going to happen. You know what I mean? I mean, this is exciting. And, you know, there's always Hugh Jackman jokes in a Deadpool movie. So it'll be interesting to have Hugh be able to maybe rebut or, kind of defend himself. It should be fun. They have a fun relationship on the social medias. So why not bring that to the platform? I think it's exciting. I think it's a win.
Love that.
For the
Twitter beef, but in a superhero movie. That's going to be so much fun. I love reading Twitter on a daily basis, so I love watching it.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we sponsored by Twitter suddenly? What's going on right now?
Don't forget to tweet today.
You've been pretty Great freeze. You've been pretty vocal about your hashtag Wolverine Too Tall with Hugh Jackman as Logan.
Huge
how do you feel? Huge Jackman. How do you feel, Huge Jackman? How do you feel about him coming back? Do you want him to be? Well, what's
great is
shrunk.
He's older now. He's older now, so he's going to be a little shorter.
Yeah, I've reached out to Ryan Reynolds numerous times about some ideas for the next Deadpool, having Wolverine, but making sure you're shooting down so he looks the proper size. Might be some fun comedy in that.
Do a Lord of the Rings is what you're saying. Like basically Deadpool is Gandalf.
Let's Hobbit that.
Comedy for days.
I think this totally makes sense. I don't know how they're going to work it out other than as they were going to do anyway, in terms of like being very cheeky about, oh, we used to be a Fox movie, now we're a Disney movie. And I'm sure there'll be lots of winky look to the camera stuff about that. I think, like we've been talking about, totally fine to bring back Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I know I was joking about it just before, but yes, this seems a natural extension of the bit that they've been doing for years at this point. So why not put it in a movie? It does, I feel like, put the MCU in a weird place with X-Men, where everybody expects them to recast Wolverine, and now they're bringing Hugh Jackman Wolverine into the MCU in some sort of form there. So it's just kind of delaying that inevitable choice, but whatever, people will like it. It'll be fun.
X-23 is all the Wolverine we need.
Well, the thing is, like, I didn't love Deadpool 2. Like, Deadpool 1, very surprised by, really enjoyable. I think they nailed it. Deadpool 2 has some very funny jokes, but some weird fridging stuff that went on there. Yep. As long as they could right the ship and make a good movie, I don't care who's in it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and I think all of this sort of backs the theory I've been saying that the X-Men are further off than we think in the MCU. Everyone thinks the X-Men are coming sooner, and this makes me think that it is further along.
Yeah. We got another big Hollywood story.
Drink your aviation gin, by the way.
Absolutely. It's actually pretty good. I'm just saying.
Small promo.
This is something that... Oh, interesting. This is from Scott Carpenter. Can you ask Pete if there is anything else he wants to plug to see if he goes straight into Find Us on Facebook? It's been a year or so since the outro change. But we have a question here from David Quinley who says...
What's happening?
Remember when we did the live show, we'd actually all say stuff versus me monologuing for a minute at the end of the show.
Right.
And you would say, find us on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, great call.
I'm also not on Facebook anymore. I got kicked off.
Oh,
you got kicked off of Facebook?
We'll definitely have to delve further into that.
Somebody guessed my password that I did. It was years ago when I created it, so it wasn't very complicated. And they changed my password and then changed the email associated with the account. So basically it was like, took all my friends and all the things that I had on Facebook and were like, yeah, I'll take it from here. Thanks.
And in real life too, right?
I was going to say, I know that guy. He's fun. He's pretty close. He hangs out with Alex and I when he comes to New York.
Pete. Yeah, he invited me out on Friday night. Huh. Anyway, we got a question here.
I was at Midtown on Wednesday. You weren't there. Pablo was there. It's your fault.
Not my fault. David Quidley on YouTube says, what do you think of Grendel being canceled? This is something that broke earlier today. There was an adaptation of Matt Wagner's Grendel that was made for Netflix. Reportedly, they had already filmed a bunch of episodes, and they were only doing 8. I don't know exactly how many, but definitely more than half of them at that point. They canceled the production for whatever reason, and it potentially will be shopped around to other streaming services. So I think we might still see it somewhere, but that's a real bummer. That really sucks, I think.
It's strange to me. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, like, Sandman is a success on Netflix, we think, as far as we can tell. And Alex, you've been doing a lot of reporting on this. Like, Sandman is a hit. It's been in the top 10 for how long? 2 months, 10 weeks, something crazy?
Yeah, it fell out, but it was in there for 7 weeks. And generally speaking, with Netflix, though they're very opaque in terms of what they're actually looking for, they're usually looking at the first 28 days, like the first 4 weeks of stats, at least self-reported. And it was there. It was right there in that top 10, and it continued past that. So yes, by their own standards, it's definitely a success.
And I would think Grendel could operate sort of alongside that. If they're trying to build up a fantasy section on the service, like, why would they cancel this unless it signals a shift? Are they saying Amazon's owning this sort of world? Not that Grendel's like high fantasy by any means, but the look and feel sort of echoes Sandman in a way, depending on assuming they were sort of tracking
Wagner
that show.
Did an unbelievable job on the comic, and it was one of my favorite pickups for sure. I loved all his stuff, especially Grendel, but also the Mask of Zorro run that he did was really amazing. So I was excited about seeing, the series and what they were going to kind of do, what they were going to take from the comic, what changes they were going to make. And now that's all gone. And that sucks that not only might it not see, the light of day, but with fans who love the comic won't be able to kind of support it. So
to get back to what Justin was saying for a second, though, all that was very well said, Pete. I do think there might be some sort of shift going on there, because the thing that stood out to me is this was executive produced by a guy named Andrew Dabb, who also executive produced and created the Resident Evil show that was on, and created The Dab, as Pete points out. Yeah. But he did Resident Evil, which I don't know if anybody watched, was honestly legitimately kind of stupid fun and did exactly what it needed to do. Did pretty solidly in terms of stats, but was canceled after one season by Netflix. It wasn't a huge surprise, but I think there might be something there in terms of they might have seen another Resident Evil coming down the pike. It might have been something similar, and they felt like, you know what, let's just cut our losses here and kind of move forward, which is super shitty, not for the least reason that the guy who was the lead, I'm forgetting his name, but he was on Katie Keene. He was the photographer friend of Pepper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he was going to be, when this came out, the first Arab Muslim lead of a superhero show. So that's kind of a big deal. Yeah. Would have been very cool. So I do hope we see it someday, but obviously not on Netflix.
Well, and I do think it's weird to cancel a show mid-production. Like, that money, from a production standpoint, that money is technically spent. That budget is just. Mm-hmm. So, like, mid-production to cancel it is, to me, always a strange sign. It means something is changing in a very big way at the company that is spending that money, if they're cutting it off at the knees when they've already shot material that could easily air.
There you go. We got a bunch more questions here that I want to get through. This is from Ben the Border Collie. Alan Sepinwall just released his ranking of the top 100 shows of all time. Real quick, what is each of y'all's top 100 shows of all time?
Let's just go through the top 100 real quick. Yeah.
100. The Pete LePage. Yeah.
99. Alf. 98. Alf. No, I don't know. It's a good list. And just to be clear, it wasn't just Alan Sepinwall. He asked a ton of people, showrunners, actors, other journalists, things like that, to put the list together. So it's
what are you saying? Are you being defensive because you submitted stuff?
I did not submit stuff.
It seemed like you're building up to that.
But it's, I don't know, like any list, there's always going to be disagreements on stuff.
Where was the A-team?
I think it was probably right above Alf, but the number one was Sopranos, which you're a big fan of, right, Justin?
I like
the Sopranos, ending hurts it being number one. That's hard to put that at number one, man. When the show can't end.
The Sopranos gets a lot of prestige because it was the first sort of quote unquote prestige drama and set the stage for all of that. So I think it gets a little bit of credibility there, but from a episode by episode basis, I don't think it's the best show of all time.
What was Seinfeld?
I was in the top 10 somewhere.
Okay, interesting.
There you go.
That's also crazy to rank Seinfeld versus Sopranos, two shows that have truly nothing in common.
This is from Nelson Martinez over on YouTube, just checking into what you guys think of Stargirl so far this season, if any of you are checking it out. I know I've seen the first 6. Have you guys watched any of it yet?
No, you broke my heart by telling me it wasn't very good, so I didn't.
No. I said it was solid. Oh my gosh, don't throw this on me, Pete.
I just go by.
I was waiting at the bar Friday night to tell you everything about Stargirl and how great it was, and you never showed up.
Oh, I was there.
Oh.
I do plan on watching it, but I haven't watched it yet.
I think it's fun. I think there's not. I wish there was more focus on the JSA characters. They sort of feel like side characters on the show at this point with everything else that's going on. But I've talked about this a bunch of times on our Week in Geek podcast. The repartee between Joel McHale and Luke Wilson is very fun. It's clearly them just like jockeying for time on screen and having a good time, and that's a good time to watch. I think the mystery structure is fun as well, and it generally seems like it's less dark and more relaxed than the previous season. Also, very interested. It seems like there's
how much stuff is Mikey eating though? That's what I want.
Mikey isn't eating enough. I will say that, and I don't remember what episode we're on. But I will say I really enjoy Zeke, the guy who is Pete on the show, the mechanic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Every time I say this, I say Zeke, the guy who was Pete, and you're like, huh? What are you talking? Oh, right. I remember that. The mechanic was like, hey, there, Wilson, you
I'm going to give you some guns. I'm going to put some guns on it.
You're going to put a little flamethrower down here. Anyway, very fun time. Why don't we go to another question over here? Oh my gosh, so many of them. This is from Edward Doherty. My wife is due on the 30th. I tried to convince her to give the kid an alliterative name like a Marvel character, Damian Doherty. However, she told me that was a stupid and a dumb idea. Which one of us is right? Great question, Edward.
Well,
great question.
Your wife knows you the best, but it's those names are fun, man. But I can't blame you for trying. But you got to, both people have to really love the name.
I'm
glad I'm chiming in on this first. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The stereotypical dad P. LePage. I think putting it forward as a comic book-esque name, maybe not your best sort of strategy. Just saying an alliterative name is cool. It's much more memorable. It's easy it rolls off the tongue. I think that's the case you make.
I very specifically didn't want to name the kids after any comic book characters. I thought through it and then thought through scenarios of it, and it just didn't feel right to me. But ultimately, you got to do what's right for you and your partner, whatever makes both of you happy.
Yeah, that's right. Stan Lee Tyler, come in here and jump on the podcast real quick. Sorry, I'm just calling my daughter over for 1 second. Just give me 1 second.
Let's see. This is from Nat Townsend. We kind of talked about this already. Also, what is MCU Phase 7 through 9 about? How do you get bigger from here? They will never get smaller. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but what do you think? I know, Justin, you seem very interested in jumping ahead. Pete, you go ahead.
I would like them to start small and then try to build again. You know what I mean? I feel like you can't keep getting bigger and keep it going. At some point, you got to kind of start small and build back up again. And, I think that's, I don't know. I don't know if you can. I hope they'll try. It's going to be interesting.
Hollywood is so good at going small after they've gone big.
No
one has any complaints about that. So I feel like they're going to be fine lowering some profits as they get back to some calm storytelling.
And we got another one from Nat here. I didn't want to mess with your interview, but are you aware that NFTs are drastically and needlessly caustic to the environment and also a pyramid scheme? Well, there you go. What do you guys think about that?
I don't know how buying something online hurts the environment, but okay.
They use an intense amount of energy to produce.
When they're made. Yes.
Yeah, when they're made. I did honestly want to touch on that a little bit because I think comparing, and I don't think there's necessarily a comparison, but printing a comic book and printing tons of comic books, which destroys trees and uses paper, versus NFTs, I don't know what the comparison is there necessarily. And it doesn't make one thing right or the other, but
more energy is used. I think more energy is used on a creation of NFT from a pure power basis.
Yeah. And I do think, to speak for our guests, not to necessarily jump in and defend, but I think they were trying to emphasize that is a small part of their project. And to be frank, I think, like I was implying, they're using that as an advertising thing to activate this new community and work with them, because I do think the book itself was pretty fun. I enjoyed it, and it seems like they're very passionate about the project.
Yeah, the book was great. There's no question about that.
So there you go. But thank you for asking that. We appreciate it. This is from Kevin. There's been a long history of comics mining mythology for characters and stories. What are some of your favorite depictions of ancient myth in comics? What are characters and stories from mythology you haven't seen but would like to?
Well, Cliff Chang did a run on Wonder Woman. Well, they did a great job of pulling, kind of redid an origin story and really focused more on the Greek gods, which was a lot of fun. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Sort of updated them, actually, I feel like, for the DC continuity at the time, which was cool.
I'll also throw out there, I feel like I say this every time we get a question like this, but George O'Connor's The Olympian series, which is a group of graphic novels from First Second. We had him on the show years ago at this point, is so cool.
Yeah.
And that's one that I'm always very pleasantly surprised kids constantly pick up and discover. Like, my oldest discovered it at around 8 years old and got obsessed with them and then kind of moved on. And then my youngest just discovered them at the library and was like, these are really cool and I'm into them.
Wait.
And every time I'm like, we had them on the show, and they're like, we don't care. Stop it, Dad. Enjoy your podcast downstairs.
And your oldest is named Pelbin Zelbin, right?
Yeah, Pelbin Zelbin and Milbin Zilbin.
Oh,
it's weird. We changed the last name for the second one.
Smart.
Interesting.
Smart.
That's,
Yes.
Very rare to do that. Harder to. Let me throw out Hercules from Greg Pak. I wish I had this answer. And Fred Van Lente.
We should get them on the show.
You did a great job of sort of having a fun way of bringing some of the old mythology stuff into the Marvel universe.
Last one we got here from Stray Bullet. We have a lot of comics that don't involve superheroes but touch on real life scenarios with characters that feel like they could be actual people but put in comic form. What's a genre of life that you'd like to see out into the comic form? Like, say, a story about stamp collectors or mini golf contestants who play to the death.
Ooh, well, man, that's a great pitch.
Wow.
I love that. More mini golf and comics, please.
So any sort of community bringing into the comic book fold?
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, one of my favorites is cooking, but there have been so many different cooking manga and cooking books at this point that I'm good on that. We're all good.
You're full. You're full of cooking manga.
I've been fed.
Yeah. That's what we say about Alex. We haven't seen a lot of ice fishermen. And let me say, that's a culture that I grew up around. They're very
kind of a grumpy old men scenario. Is that what you're saying? Like,
that's what I'm talking about.
And for culture, we haven't seen horticulture. We haven't seen a lot of horticulturists.
I would love to see a stamp collector by day and, fighting crime at night situation. Let me first pitch my frisbee golf comic, you know what I mean? Where it's adventures of...
Didn't they do that? Mark Miller wrote a book called The Ultimates.
Very different game, Alex. Ultimate and frisbee golf.
Hey, see what he did there?
Fair enough.
He paused afterwards to really let us know.
Hold for applause.
And
we
that
very rarely applaud on this podcast.
You can hear it, though. You can hear it. Everybody in Brooklyn is going nuts outside right now. That
Pete, you were here this past weekend.
Yeah, that's right, man.
And that's it for your audience questions. We are going to go to our next section, which is trivia. And for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LePage.
All right.
Pete LePage.
The question is, do we have a volunteer? Or are we looking for a first-hand-up person?
We're looking for a first-hand-up person. Anybody who wants to do trivia, just say me or raise your hand or hi or absolutely anything, either in the comments here. You can also do it on YouTube. There's a delay. And you'll be competing for either a $25 gift card at Midtown Comics or a $25 gift card to Long John Silver's, your choice.
Yes, we have made that option permanent.
Look at those options.
Yes.
Let me throw out, we got a question while we're waiting for a hand to come up. What happened to the cheesesteak meme from Edward Doherty in the comments here? And that's a question that's kept me up nights as well.
The cheesesteak meme?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you. The cheesesteak meme? What happened?
You know what I'm talking about. From Riverdale.
The one where you were... No, wait. Hold on.
Good.
That was a really good setup.
The one where you're...
sucking on a cheesesteak.
Yeah! There it is.
Woo!
I knew it was in there.
Worth the 15
Oh, we got David
wait for
Quinley. over on YouTube will do it.
Okay.
So why don't we set it up with him? How does that sound?
Great.
I think that's great.
Okay, David Quinley, you're in. I'm going to feed you the questions on YouTube.
I'm going to feed you the questions.
You're going to be
straight
fed.
from the butcher's hands, hands right into your mouth.
All right.
Here we go. Today's trivia is on topical comic news and a small nod to the legend Louise Fletcher, R.I.P. Please listen to all three options before making your selection. Here we go. Question number 1. Archie Comics for the holidays is launching a fun one-shot called blank. Is it A, fuck, I forgot to get that person a present, B, Happy Horror Days, or C, Sally Kirkland? So it's either A, which I completely made up, or it's B, Happy
It sounds like you
Horror
forgot to get
Days.
somebody a present, though, Pete. Is that something that happened?
Well, that always seems to
that
happen
feels like
every
it's something
year.
that's
It's like you
haunting.
think you got everybody, and then there's that one person looking at you like, "Wahabi." You know what I mean?
Hey, what happies? My birthday's coming up. I don't know if that's in here.
Oh, really? Is it soon?
Very.
Ooh.
Wait,
Right.
how
You got a
soon?
2-week clock, kid.
Oh man.
2 weeks.
David Quinley is not saying B yet, but let's imagine he said B and keep
Oh, I
moving
just
on.
did.
Oh, that's a
Right.
good hypothetical.
Right.
Yeah,
All
so
right. Here we go.
imagine.
Question number 2.
They do
Which-
that on Jeopardy a lot.
Oh, he said B. There we go. Okay.
Which thing from the 90s is DC actually bringing back? Is it A, holographic covers, B, embossed foil covers, or C, Ahmad Rashad? So it's either A, which isn't true, or it's B, embossed foil covers are coming back. Can you believe it? Guys, how many of the foil covers did you have?
I
I'll
love
just
an
bring up,
embossed.
I know we had 2 choices for prizes. Jack Rudy over on YouTube says the only prize I would want is a cheesesteak date with Pete. Is that a thing? Would you do that? Would you do that as a prize, Pete?
Oh, man. Yeah, in a second. For a cheesesteak? Yeah.
Oh man, somebody get some wet naps to that date. 'Cause
What
guys
would
are
you
gonna
do
need to
for a
clean your hands.
cheesesteak bar? Right, Pete?
Yeah, so B.
Yes, B. Let's imagine he said B. Go
How
ahead.
many cheesesteak dates could you do in a row?
Oh, he said B.
Like
there
if,
we go.
If you had to do like 3 or 4.
Yeah,
back to
like
back.
imagine you
Like
had
if it
to
was
do
a
2 at the same
rom-com and I
time. Yeah,
had
like
to
a
do-
classic, like you were doing a Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire.
A classic Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
Great rom-com.
I could definitely do 5 in one day. I mean, I would need
5
like,
cheesesteaks? You would
That's too
eat
many.
5 cheesesteaks in one.
My God.
oh yeah. Would
how
I?
much time?
Have
How
I?
much time
Yeah.
would you? How much
All
time?
right,
do
you're
you
going to
need
run out
between
of sound cue at a certain point, so take it away, Pete.
Okay, here we go. Number 3. People are excited to see Namor in Wakanda Forever. But when did Namor first appear? Is it A, 1928, B, 1939, or is it C, James Earl Jones? And do you guys know the answer to this one? If I
James Earl
don't give-
Jones is what I.
Wait,
how I
is this?
keep
Sorry,
time.
what was the question when Black
First
Panther
appearance of Namor.
Oh,
James Earl Jones.
Namor.
Yeah.
It would,
You know, 'cause of
wait, did you say
Wakanda
1928 or 1939? Was that
That's right.
I say
1939?
39.
It would
Yeah,
have
it's
to be
30.
39.
It's 39. Yeah, just
Yeah,
wondering.
because Superman was 38, right?
Yeah, comics weren't really a thing before that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not really. Let's say he said that. Congratulations, David Quidley. You have won your choice of either a gift card to Midtown Comics or a Long John Silver's gift card or a cheesesteak date with Pete LePage. Just email us at
Whichever one makes the most
comicbookclub@gmail.com
sense.
and we will get it set up.
Evan,
And what's-
I have a gift card for Long John Comics. Is that a good? Should I use that?
It's good. They use tartar sauce in their comics, so I don't recommend it.
That's how you bag and board them.
Kevin, of course, was on top of it. We're talking about the 1989 smash hit, Best of the Best.
Oh, wow. Speaking of the best, as we all know, the best comics are always coming out all the time. What are you looking forward to that's coming out this week, Pete?
Oh, man, a lot of great stuff. I'm pleasantly surprised with DC versus Vampires number 9. And also,
Oh, you were pleasantly surprised with a book that you've loved every issue of?
Yep.
We've literally glowed about this book for, I want to say, 9 months.
Yep. And also 8 Billion Genies number 5.
Justin, what about you?
I also enjoyed a lot of great comics this week. I would first want to shout out Amazing Spider.
Wait, what are you saying? You're freezing. Amazing Spider-Man.
I think you said Spider-Man.
Can you hear me now? Amazing Spider-Man number 10. This is actually a crossover as a part of the Avengers Eternals crossover, and it is just a great use of that as a storytelling device that I really enjoyed. Also,
I'll get your heartstrings.
It got me. It did. Human Target number 7 coming back with a vengeance. Lazarus Risen number 7 after a year break. Back at it.
Oh man, and, that's a banger issue.
About that going forward. Yeah,
so many good things. The one that I'll give a shout out to that I was very excited about, Superman Space Age number 2 from DC Comics by Mark Russell with Mike Allred and Laura Allred. Perfect team. I said this in the first issue, but love Mark Russell, love Mike Allred and Laura Allred. You have already sold me on the book. I don't even care what the contents is. It's great, but this is, I think, 80-something pages of them working together. So exciting. All of that stuff is going to be in our Stack podcast, which comes out Wednesday at 9 a.m., both in the Comic Book Club feed and its own dedicated Stack feed. And folks, that is it for this week's show. A couple of people we want to thank. We want to thank Blaise Hemingway, Bryan Unkeless, and Bryce Anderson for coming on to talk about Runner. Also, Joe Corallo, thanks for coming back to the show to talk about The Never-Ending Party. Next week on the show, Ryan Silbert is going to be returning to talk about Alliance's Orphans. Also, Matthew Klickstein is going to be here to talk about Fantagraphics. See you at San Diego Comic-Con, an oral history of Comic-Con fandom and the triumph of geek culture. We are going to celebrate with them. A couple of things we want to celebrate. Marvel Vision, our Marvel podcast, coming out weekly. Only saying positive things about She-Hulk. It's really a celebration of the show.
That's what I like to hear you say.
The Doom Room, our Doom Patrol podcast on Thursdays as well. Check out new episodes there. The Umbrella Academy, our Umbrella Academy podcast, is back on Mondays, so you can check that out. We are getting caught up with the rest of the season. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club to support the show and all the shows we do. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice. At Comic Book Live on Twitter, Comic Book Club Live on Instagram, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, good night.
Good night, folks.
Pete, I'll see you on Friday, right? Friday at the bar. I'll see you at the bar, Pete. Pete, I can't hear you. What's the location, Pete? Hey!